Welcome to the Westport Library. Today's program will begin momentarily. Supported by Verso Studios, created locally and shared with the world.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out on this very dark evening. Tonight, I'm honored to introduce to you two people who live right next door to you, so you probably don't even need this introduction, but they've made marks on our town and beyond, and we're gonna have a great conversation tonight. So for those of you who don't know why we're here, Marc Lasry is the chairman, CEO, and co-founder of Avenue Capital Group, a former co-owner of the Milwaukee Bucks, and a current member of the Council on Foreign Relations. Dave Briggs, who will be in conversation with Marc, is a Westport Library trustee, TV anchor, and vice president for business development for CAN. So without further ado, because you're not here to listen to me, Marc and Dave, would you come to the stage?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. Great to be back on this stage. I love this. What do you think of this place, by the way? I mean, you haven't been here in a while. What do you think?
I think it's gorgeous. You guys did a great job.
It's a beautiful place,
phenomenal.
isn't it? We have not seen each other since we held the trophy in your backyard a couple of years ago, the championship trophy at the party to celebrate the NBA championship. So it's great to see you.
My pleasure.
Great to have you here, and we appreciate it. We do want this to be a conversation. We would like all you to weigh in, so please have your questions ready. We're gonna take them over there. You can see where the light is on against the backdrop and the microphone. We wanna have as many questions as you can, and Marc can, I think, tackle any of them. The point of this conversation is investment in sports, which is one of the most exciting avenues in investing. It's one of the most electric opportunities in the country. As a former Milwaukee Bucks owner, it's just so exciting seeing what's happening in sports. As a lifetime sports broadcaster, I know I'm thrilled to discuss that. I do have to start because I think many in this crowd and most in this country, Marc, are still trying to process what happened 8 days ago and what's happened in the last 24 hours, in fact. And this is no disrespect to anyone if they do, in fact, support the president-elect. It has been a shocking 8 days. I think it's been just, as someone who's been in Dubai for the last 5 days, it's been particularly hard to compress. You are a big supporter financially of Kamala Harris. How do you process what happened 8 days ago? Not just that it was a loss, that it was in every demo, in every swing state, in every age group across the country. What do we take away? What do we learn?
It's a good way to start, I guess. Look, I think for me, I wasn't born here. So I was born in Morocco. And, you know, you come to this country, it's a phenomenal country. You can do anything. And one of the great things about being an American is you get to vote. And, you know, I'm a big believer in that people have a right to vote. I voted for Kamala, she lost. That's fine. Like President-elect Trump won. And, you know, what I want him to be is successful. Why? Because I want America to be successful. I want things to be positive. It's, you know, you lose, you move on. I mean, I think for me, when you know, doing sports my whole life, I'm just a big believer. At the end of the day, you know, there's a contest. Somebody wins, somebody loses. If you lose, you try to be gracious about it, and you move on, and you try to win the next time. You know, so the next time will be in 4 years, so we'll try something new.
But you certainly, every time you lose, I hope you try to learn. That's what I try to do when I fail. I always try to diagnose it and figure out how can I get better from that loss. And I watched you on election night on CNBC echoing the things I had been saying for months. And just to be frank, I am a center-right former Republican, and the thing that you said on CNBC, I'd been saying for months. Our economy is stronger than it's ever been. It is, in the words of The Economist, the envy of the world. Stocks are high, unemployment's low, job growth is high, GDP is higher than it was pre-COVID under Trump. Energy production is at an all-time high. Literally by every metric that you can measure, our economy is extraordinary at this moment. And yet people voted for change. What do we learn from that?
Well, I think part of it is there's a difference between the economy doing well and people doing well, right? So the biggest issue, if you sort of think about it, 4 years ago, if you went to buy a house, interest rates were 2%. So you could borrow money at 2-3%. Today, if you're getting a mortgage, it's 7%. So for the average American, you're paying 100% more. Inflation ended up being a real issue for people. Yes, inflation has come down, but pricing is still about 2 times what it was. So for most Americans, if you're making $50,000, if you're making $75,000, it's a real issue, and you're living week to week. So I think that's why people want to change. I think for a lot of people, the economy was going well, but also for a lot more, and when you're in swing states and when elections are decided by very small margins, you've got to be able to reach out to everybody. And I think for whatever reason, a number of people felt that they wanted change.
Stocks soared upon the Trump win. Bitcoin is at an all-time high, 90,000. The dollar soared, the 10-year, in almost every metric. It seemed the business community was thrilled. What did you make of that, and what do you think you expect the economy to do under a second Trump term?
Well, I think the economy is going to do very well because interest rates are going down. So the Fed wants to lower rates. So for everybody here, I think in a year from now, rates will be about 50 bips lower. They could be somewhere around 75 bips. The reason, I think, why the market goes up and sort of every metric right now is because people believe there's going to be, less deregulation, right? Less regulations. You're going to have a lot. It's going to be easier to do business. I think people wanted change. They're going to get it. So that's where we are.
Lena Khan is certainly looking for work. That we can agree on. Last question on politics. But in the last 24 hours, he appointed a Fox News host where I used to work as the defense secretary, and wants a man accused of sex trafficking minors to run the Department of Justice. I love that you just chalk up an L, but does this scare the hell out of you? It does me. I'm just going to be frank.
It's an issue. Of course it's an issue. But he won. He gets to pick who he wants. I don't really worry about things I can't control. I think the benefits of winning are you get to do what you want. Do I agree with who he's picked? No. But in the last 5 days, he hasn't called me. To ask my opinion, so it's kind of moot.
I love how you just brush it off. All right, let's turn the conversation back towards sports. Avenue Capital made its mark with distressed assets. Why the pivot suddenly to sports and the hottest asset, arguably, on the planet?
Well, I've been investing in sports my whole life. I love it. I think by owning the Milwaukee Bucks, you get to understand and you get to understand and learn quite a bit about sports. So for me, I think I'm in a unique position to try to do this because there's nobody else out there who is investing in sports who's owned a team. So you get to learn quite a bit. And because of that, I think we have a huge edge.
And Avenue Capital now is fully started an arm, if you will. Talk about some of the names our audience is probably familiar with that you're going to be working with.
Oh, sure. So, I don't know, one of the things, we have an advisory board. I will probably bet you 5 of the 6 really well. So who here has heard of Steph Curry? All right, so there you go. Michael Strahan, all right? And so Candace Parker. She's, by the way, the only person in history to win Rookie of the Year and MVP in her first season.
I think the best winner in the history of sports, you could argue.
Yeah, she's phenomenal.
Yeah, she's a winner.
Lindsey Vonn, I don't know if most people know her. Lauren Holiday, So Lauren Holiday, two-time Olympian. I got to meet her because her husband played for us, Drew Holiday. And then the other person who is actually known around the world, but maybe less here, is Harry Kane. So Harry Kane is captain of the British national team in soccer. So for us, we wanted to have 6 athletes that could help us win every tie.
What is it that you love about investing in sports, about sports in this moment?
Well, I think people don't fully understand it, and I think you can actually make huge amounts of money on it. So I'll try to give you an example. So we'll try to make this interactive. All right. Does anybody know how many Americans live in this country? Throw it out. How
30
much?
billion?
All right, about 350, yeah. All right. All right. Who here is a hockey fan? Raise your hand. What is the average hockey game, how many people watch it in this country? Take a guess. Per game, like just watch on TV. 2 million people? Higher or lower? Lower. All right. I'll give you the answers at the end. All right. Not playoff hockey, regular. Baseball, American pastime.
Ooh.
How many people watch that? What do you think?
An average game?
Average game.
Well, that's on local television. I'd say a couple 100,000.
All right. What do people think? I love the specificity. Love that. All right. 800,000. Higher or lower? All right. Basketball. Average basketball game. How many people? 3 million. Higher or lower?
Lower.
Lower. All right. So now let me give you the answers. And then you're going to understand why you want to invest in sports. Average hockey game, 500,000. Do you know how much they get paid? $700 million. That's the media deal. Baseball, million viewers. You know how much they get paid? $2 billion. Basketball, $1.5 million. They get paid $7 billion. That's their media deal. All right. I'm going to tell you a sport that every young Jewish boy grows up wanting to do. Bull riding. So, has anybody here ridden a bull?
I have.
You have?
Yes. 6 seconds.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, you're
hurt.
supposed to stay on for 8.
I
and then
know.
if you can do it, you win.
It was probably more like 4
All
seconds.
right. I didn't want to say it was 1, but it's all right.
We guys have to,
right.
measure up.
So, I bought a team for $25 million. Team makes you about $1 million, so you make about 5%. Their media deal comes up in 2 years. How many people do you think watch bull riding in the United States? Take a guess. Whoa, I love you. It's 1.2 million.
1 million?
More than watch baseball. All right. Their media deal is $10 million a year. Their media deal comes up in 2 years. Do you think it's going to be more than 10 million? I'm pretty sure. So we own about 10% of the league because there's 10 teams. If they end up getting about 200 million, so if they end up getting 10% of baseball, even though they have 20% more viewers, I think they'll get 200 million, 300 million. I get what, 20, 30 million for something that I just paid 25 million? Put a 10 multiple. That means it's worth 200 to 300 million. Do you want to know what sports teams trade for?
Yes.
What do you think the multiple is?
20x, 25x.
20, 25. Who here has heard of the New York Knicks? New York Rangers. There's an MSG is a stock that you can go out and buy today. Do you want to know what multiple it trades at? 80 times. Teams trade for between 50 to 100 times. All I need is for a team to trade at 10 times. If it trades at 10 times on my little bull riding team. All right, I'll give you one more. Who here sales? All right, so more people than do bull riding. All right. 3 years ago, Larry Ellison, who is a big believer in America's Cup, goes out.
Oracle founder. Yeah.
Oracle founder is worth whatever, 100, 200 billion, says, I need 250 million to start a league, a sailing league, Sail GP. You know how much money he raises? 0. Everybody goes, nobody's gonna watch it on TV. We buy Team USA. Team USA, we paid 60 million. There's 12 teams, Team USA, Team Britain, Team Canada. You have 20 races around the world. These boats go like 50 miles an hour. So, convinces CBS Sports to pay him $40 million for 100,000 viewers. All right? 3 years later, in the United States, how many people do you think watch sailing? 1.5? It's actually more than that.
Stop it. Watch sailing.
I'm gonna give you access to my database. We have this
Thank you.
secret database called Google. And if you use it, you just go Sail GP ratings, and on the ratings, you will see it's 1.8 million. So what does this tell you? It tells you that you have no idea what people want to watch. That's really it. And so if you do the math, 20 times, by the way, globally, it's 20 million viewers. So in the US, which is the largest media market, if you have 2 million viewers, last deal was 40 million for 100,000. Next deal should be 20 times that number. That's 800 million. The US team, why do we buy the US team? US team gets half of the US media rights. So that means we'll get somewhere around 400 to 500 million for something we paid 60 million. Put a 10 multiple, it's worth $4 billion. That's why you want to invest in sports.
Then why do you want to sell an NBA team as valuations are skyrocketing? Admittedly, you made a fortune off Milwaukee Bucks, buying at $550 million in 2013, selling your 25% at an 875, I believe, million, a huge turn. The average team is now worth 4.4 billion on average. Why sell? And in retrospect, is there any regret?
There's always regret. I think it was fun. It was a blast. It's great to be God in a city. I loved it. But the reason we sold it, we bought it for about 500, sold it for 3.5 billion. The NBA, so here's an interesting statistic. All the valuations are going up, and they go up, you can only make money 3 ways: ticket sales, sponsorship, media. So Milwaukee's a small market. So average NBA team may be 4.4, but Milwaukee is not. Ultimately, for me, it was, I wanted to do different things. I wouldn't have sold if we had lived there, but we live here and we live in New York. So I think it was, I wanted to do other things. The other biggest reason is I thought it was gonna be hard to keep Giannis. It was gonna be hard to keep the team. So the dirty little secret about owning a team. So who here wants to own a team? All right, everybody, right? So, by the way, it's great. I highly recommend. You just got to find $4 billion. But here's the problem. So when we bought the Bucks, when I bought the team, it was making $5 million a year. So we paid $500 million. So think about that. That's 100 times. Seems like a lot to pay for something. What do you think it was making when I sold it? Take a guess. How much? 200 million? 50 million, 20 million. All right. It was losing about 100 million. So why is that? Yeah, salaries, but what happens is the NBA has a cap, and if you go over that cap, you have this tax, and it was called a luxury tax, and we were on the hook to pay about 100 million plus. So the problem with owning a team is you do not want to make money. It's no fun I'm being serious. It's not fun making money because to make money means you're going to lose. If you want to win, what do? You spend money and you try to get the best players. The goal is to win. Nobody buys a team and says, well, I did when I bought it. I thought, oh, we're gonna make money. And then you quickly realize you actually don't own the team, you're a steward. You're trying to do what's right, and what's right is always trying to win. So if you're a Knicks fan, do you want Dolan, or if Dolan says, listen, I'm not spending money, I just want to make as much and the team's going to be bad? No, all you care about is winning. And that's what we cared about. And we spent every dollar we made to make that team the best it could be. And at a certain point, you have to decide, are you willing to keep on losing money to succeed? And I think for me, I thought it was gonna be hard to compete. I didn't know what would happen with Giannis. And my view was that now was a good time to sell. So that's why I sold.
And now they're 40 to 50 billion over the cap and 2 and 8 at last check. This sounds like a bubble that you're describing. Low viewership, losing money. Does this feel like, it obviously doesn't, you're investing heavily in sports, but.
No, I think people love sports, and what ends up happening is most people want to win. And if you didn't want to win, what would happen is the team would make 100 million, right? So you've got to decide, do you want to make 100 million and lose? Or do you want to break even and win, or lose a little money and win?
The world champs are currently on the market, and rumors are they'll fetch a $6 billion price tag, the Boston Celtics. Mark Bezos has been talked about. This is a franchise with no building. No building, so therefore no food, no drinks, no ticket sales, relatively speaking. Is $6 billion a ridiculous number for a team with no building, albeit a marquee cornerstone franchise with 18 championships?
So I don't think they'll sell for 6. I think they'll sell for 4.5. Still a lot. Team loses about 250 million. That's what they're going to lose this year.
God.
So who here is 4.5 billion that you want to spend, and you can have the opportunity to lose 250 million? That's how you got to look at it. And there are not that many people who will do that. And so I do think it'll come to a point. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you'll always find people willing to spend billions and billions of dollars and lose hundreds of millions.
You won't be bidding.
No.
You can rule that out.
I'm out.
I spoke with Adam Silver yesterday, the NBA commissioner, about why he chose Amazon over Turner, the networks of Turner. And no one seems to ask him that question, and he spoke for about 5 minutes about the advantage of Amazon, which blew my mind. What does it mean for the valuations of professional sports teams now that you have the biggest companies on the planet involved? Amazon, Apple, Netflix, some are $2 and $3 trillion companies. What does that mean for sports as a whole?
All Amazon cares about is that you join Amazon Prime. So the reason they're showing NFL games, the reason they're bidding on basketball games is they want more people to sign up. So sooner or later, you hit a saturation point. And when that ends up happening, I don't think you'll see media rights. Media rights will go up 10% a year, but it's like everybody makes a big deal that the media rights went up, from 2.8 billion, 2.7 billion to 7 billion. If you do the math over 11 years, that's a 15% return. Things should go up about 10, 15% a year. But I don't think people just go, it had doubled. All a media company cares about is to make money. Like, do you know how much a Super Bowl commercial is?
7.5, I think.
7.5 million for 30 seconds, right? I was gonna buy one, my wife's right there. I was gonna buy one so I could tell her how much I love her and how great she is. But I was up to 5. I dropped out at 7.5. But when you sort of think about it, is a media, cheapskate. Why is a media company willing to, they're selling it for 7 million, who's buying it? So if people weren't buying it, they would sell it for 5, right? So all a media company wants to do is make money. That's it. And so they'll sell the commercials for as much as they can. And sooner or later, the pricing of all these things hits a point, and I think they go up about 10% a year.
They already sold out this year.
They already have.
So you're suggesting that Amazon will get out once
No,
they
I think
saturate
Amazon-
the point of Prime viewers?
Yeah, once,
Prime
yeah, because what do they care about? All they care about is more people are using
boxes
Amazon.
on your front doorstep.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
all they care about. So they need more customers. Once they've hit their saturation point, then it goes, how do we keep those customers? It's no longer about getting these customers, it's about keeping your customers.
Around the time you sold the Bucks, you bought a pickleball team, which astounded me, just being frank, because I love the game. I want to play you. But I never in a million years thought anyone will watch it on television or pay $1 to see a pickleball game. We don't watch people do things we can do, as a general rule. Why'd you buy that team?
I had a friend, James Blake, who had called me and said, let's invest in pickleball. I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And for whatever reason, that day or the next day, I went to Rolling Hills and I played tennis. And they were changing a bunch of the courts, and I asked the pro what was going on, and he said they were changing a lot of the tennis courts to pickleball courts. And I was kind of surprised, and he said that it's this new craze, everybody's playing it, it's great. I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. And I called James, and I said, okay, let's go buy one. That was my due diligence. We paid $50,000, so it wasn't a big deal. And then we sold it like 3 years later for like $5 million plus. So.
Do you agree with my assessment?
Yeah, I think it's great to play. I don't think people will watch it on TV. That's why I sold it.
Ah, so we do agree.
Yes.
Ah, fair.
Yes.
I do think it's a heck of a real estate investment. It's exploding. You were into that in City Pickle. Do you believe it is the future of taking over malls down in Stamford and
I think what you want to
converting
do
tennis courts?
is you want to own the companies that make pickleball courts. You want to own the companies that rent pickleball courts, and that's what we did with City Pickle.
But you are a padel player.
Yes.
Is that a future investment opportunity?
Yeah, we're looking at investing in that. Yes.
Interesting. Okay. Women's sports is something that interests you very much. The WNBA was hot this year. Caitlin Clark, all-time ratings, all-time attendance. And yet the reports are the league lost $40 million at all-time records.
Yes.
Is it a good investment?
I think it is. I think it's catching up. So the problem for those of you who can do math, I'm going to give you a math question. 1.5 million people watch men's basketball, right? The NBA. How many people do you think watch WNBA this year?
One game.
So it was about 200,000. It's now about 800,000.
Hold on. How many people watched the WNBA game this year? Oh, that's more than I thought. Yeah. Okay, that's not bad. Okay.
All right. So it's getting close to 1 million viewers. All right. So if the NBA media deal is $7 billion, WNBA should be a third less, right? So it should be around $4.5 billion. It's not. What do you think it is? Pardon? 800 million? Okay. Anybody higher or lower? Lower. It's 200 million. It's only 97% less. All right. So from a math standpoint, why is it that women are getting 3% of what the men are, even though they're only having a third less? The reason is because that's when they had done the media deal. When they did the media deal, 200,000 people were watching. So media companies now are making a fortune of money on women's sports, but it'll catch up. And it'll catch up in 3, 4, 5 years. And when that happens, that's when all these WNBA teams will be making money. So women's soccer, 5 years ago, you could have bought a women's soccer team for $1 million. We just committed to buy a women's soccer team for $100 million. So they've only gone up 100 times in about 4 or 5 years. Their media deal when they started was $1.5 million a year. Last year it became $60 million. I think in 4 or 5 years, it'll be about 400 or 500 million. So I think women's soccer teams will be worth somewhere around 250 to $500 million.
You may have just answered the question. Then where do you see the biggest opportunity out there in investing in sports and/or?
I think anything women's sports. We just did a women's new league called Unrivaled. We're investing in Europe. We're buying every women's soccer team we can. You can buy them for $1 million to $2 million. Who here is European? I'm sorry. So Europe is usually behind the US about 5-10 years. So that's the reason why we're buying as many women's teams as we can for about €1 million, €1 million pounds. We're going to try to buy about 20 teams if we can.
20 teams.
Yeah, and I think 5 years from now, those teams, they're worth 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, hopefully 100 million. Here's a statistic. All right, I'm going to give you 2 statistics. And
You should teach a class, man. It'd be awesome.
So, University of Nebraska. Does anybody know that state? You from Nebraska? No, so you know the state, right? All right, good. All right, Nebraska. They have a football team. Football team plays in front of 95,000 people. Somebody ends up saying, you know what? The Nebraska women's volleyball team keeps selling out and they have 5,000 in their little stadium. How about if we, as a marketing ploy, play in the football stadium? Do you know how many tickets they sold for that game? A women's volleyball game against the University of Iowa. 95,000. They sold out. You know, I tell people that and they go, yeah, there's nothing to do in Nebraska. But if you think about it, 95,000 people came. All right. Caitlin Clark, you brought her up. All right. Caitlin Clark, in her last college basketball game, does anybody know what the ratings for that was?
13 million watched.
No, it was 13.8 for the semifinals. It was 18.8 for the finals.
Damn.
All right. Here's something you don't know. In the history of sports, for an NHL Stanley Cup playoff game, they've never had that many people watch. They've never had that many people watch a World Series game. The last World Series game between the Dodgers and the Yankees was 15.5 million viewers. Caitlin Clark's was 18.8. It set a record for most watched game in the history of sports other than a football game. Beat the NBA, beat baseball, hockey. There's been nobody who's come close to that, all right? So the reason for that is, so who here has daughters, all right? Most of us do. I have 3. When I was a kid, if you went to a game with your father, he never brought your sister. Today, which parent is not bringing their daughter to a game? Raise your hand.
Oops. They hate sports, man. I'm not.
That's not, all right.
They read books. I'm not.
All right. But there has been a cultural shift in this country. And that cultural shift means that parents want to bring their daughters. They want to bring their daughters. And also now, the biggest difference is, and you're seeing it, in sports, young girls now want to wear a Caitlin Clark jersey. Whereas in the past, they would have worn a Dr. J jersey, or they would have worn a LeBron or a Steph. Now you're starting to see, and it is a real cultural shift. And as that shift keeps on happening, so the cost of these tickets for women's sports is really low, and they'll move up, and that's what'll happen. That's why we want to invest in women's sports.
Good point. I told the commissioner she made a huge mistake not selling Caitlin Clark merchandise in away games. That was a huge loss for them. Let's turn to the biggest sport on the planet, well, in the country, which of course is the NFL. Private equity now has entered the game here in the United States in the NFL. How will it change the game, and is that a good investment opportunity?
I don't think it changes anything. Change is actually really good. And what ends up happening is, as you have people like me investing in sports, you're going to start demanding to make money, right? NFL, so 95 of the 100 highest rated TV shows last year were NFL games. I know, it's crazy, but that's what it was. And if every NFL team makes anywhere between 2 to 4%. So in essence, you've got a 2 to 4% cash on cash, and then you've got your capital appreciation. So I think it's a really good investment. I think for us, we'll take our time, but I think for anybody who's investing in it, you'll probably make at least 10% a year.
Upon exit, is that the play?
You have to sell.
With that in mind, all those numbers you're throwing out, why can't a second football league ever make a dime? The Rock, arguably the biggest celebrity on the planet, tried and failed with the XFL.
It's actually really simple. I'll tell you why. So this is my theory. Who here watches the Olympics? Raise your hands. Pretty much everybody. All right. Why? Oh my God, I just had a senior moment. The thing you... Curl, really? Thank you. We could do a pantomime, right? I'm just going like this. Curling, all right. Who watches curling? All right.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
You want to know why you watch curling? Because you're watching the best in the world compete. That's actually why you watch curling. Other than the Olympics, when else do you watch curling? Raise your hand.
Oh, come on.
I rest my case. I rest my case.
Casper, yeah.
You only watch curling during the Olympics, and the reason you watch it, even though it's the most boring sport in the world, right? Somebody comes up, imagine if I say to you, here's my idea. I'm gonna take a lead weight as a ball, and I'm gonna roll it on the ice into this circle over there. Oh, and by the way, to make it really exciting, I'm gonna have another person with a rake, raking the ice to either make it faster or slower. What would you say if I said to you, let's go make a sport out of that?
Stop drinking.
All right. You want to know a sport we didn't invest in? And the reason we don't invest in a lot of things, I want to wait and see, because again, I have no idea what people watch. I really don't. And I don't want to know, right? I just look at the ratings, and they come out the following day. Is anybody, I don't know, yeah, young people will know this sport.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Which one?
The power slap.
Power slap. Has anybody seen this on TV?
You literally slap people across the face as hard as you can.
So they come to us and they go, do you want to invest in this?
Hold on, tell them who started it.
It's
Dana White,
yeah,
arguably the smartest, well, one of the smartest.
Here's all they do. You have two people. Somebody want to come up? Come up. I slap you as hard.
Do you want to?
That's all it is. I slap you as hard as I can. And then, if you're able to get up, you slap me as hard as you can. And whoever isn't getting up by the second or third slap, that's the person who wins. All right. You know how many people watch this? Yeah, 1 million Americans.
And you had an opportunity to invest, I believe.
Yeah, but I don't do it in the beginning because I'm like, somebody tells me that, I'm like, who would watch somebody slaps another person? And yes, now I'll invest in it today. Why? No, but it is a statement, and you're right, but here's what it is. You have 350 million Americans. Less than 1% of this country watches the 3 major sports. That's actually fascinating. What's the other 99% doing? In Canada, for a hockey game, 10% of the population watches it. Here, you don't even get 10% of the population watching American football. You watch, for the Super Bowl, you will. So what is amazing, like Premier League, which is the best soccer league, you could only watch that starting 3 years ago on the Peacock channel.
Yeah.
Now they've got 1 million viewers. Prior to that, they had no viewers. So what's interesting about all these things is who will watch, what will they watch, and for me, all I care about is what the ratings are. Because then if I see that things are growing 30, 40% a year, happy to invest.
Anything else you regret not investing in? And this doesn't have to be sports, but is there that, oh, damn, I missed that opportunity?
Bitcoin. Bitcoin's at 90,000. You could have bought it at like $50, $100. I love the idea. Like, you know, imagine somebody says, I'm gonna make up money. and I'm gonna make it electronically. And that's gonna become money. Like the idea to me that somebody could do that seemed far-fetched, but
You own any now?
yeah. I gave up, I bought it.
And you think it'll go above 100, which most do?
I think it will.
Yeah, it scares the crap out of me. I just don't understand it.
Sell it.
I'm glad you did. Sell it?
Oh, when do you sell it?
Oh,
I don't know. You know, the problem with Bitcoin is it gets harder and harder to make, and then the cost of making it is really expensive. You need to have these data centers and the computers. So, and the way the math works on it is every year less is made because of the fact that it gets, you know, the program's harder. So theoretically, less that'll be in circulation, more people will want it, especially young people, price should go up.
it's tethered to nothing and relatively trades on emotion. That's what I don't understand. You appeared to be, as owner of the Bucks, a hands-off owner. Yes?
No?
Really? So you meddled.
If you spend, why? I love that. People say to you, you meddled. If you spend $500 million, would you want to focus? Seriously, like,
Interesting.
why would you focus?
So when you see all the criticism, which I laughed a lot of, at Jerry Jones, owner of the Dallas Cowboys, who's now worth $11 billion, this man won't shut the damn curtains in his building. He built a stadium that was designed to have sunlight shine through it that is blinding his players who are dropping touchdown passes. He is refusing to sign running backs. There are players that are forming mutinies inside his own locker room because he is a terrible general manager by all accounts. You say it's every bit his right.
You bought the team. Like when I bought the team, it took me about 2 years I played basketball and I thought I understood it. It takes you a while to really understand professional sports. And, you know, I would sort of make strong suggestions. And, you know, I remember when we had our GM and our coach, and one of the things I told them is I said, I need both of you to be on the same page. You can't, you know, the problem is a coach needs to win today and the GM is building for the future. So you need them constantly on the same page. I think my wife will tell you, I must have called, you know, she was in the car every time we would call the GM and I would speak to him every night.
But you had a GM. Jerry does not. Do you
Yes,
think
but-
that's a wise course?
Look, at the end of the day, it's his team. And if by doing what he's doing, he's losing, maybe he'll change his mind. But the prerogative, you don't own the team. If you want to go hire a GM, go buy it.
But you said your job is to do this for the city, for the fans. That doesn't appear to be his focus.
I agree. But for me, I think when you buy a team, you quickly become a steward of that team. And I remember when we had bought it, we had gone to Milwaukee, and this fan comes up, and he goes, "Mr. Lasry, I have a great idea." I'm like, "Fabulous." "What is it?" He goes, "You need to get LeBron James, Steph Curry here, and if you do that, we're gonna win a championship." I was like,
Hire that man.
"Thank you." And, you know, I go to my GM, I'm like, "Listen, fan just told me we got to get Steph and LeBron. Can you do that?" He goes, "No, because nobody wants to trade them." Right? And that's the problem. The problem in all these things is it's easy to figure out what you want to do. Like, I would always tell my GM a really simple thing. I don't need your advice to sign Giannis. I figured that out. I need you to find me a 20 million guy for 2 million. I don't want you to sign a $20 million person who becomes 2 million. So go find people in the G League, go find people that right now are cheap that we can sign that'll become worth a lot. That's how you end up winning. That's what we did with Brook Lopez. Brook Lopez played for the Lakers and we signed him as a minimum player. We signed Chris Middleton, who became an all-star, came to us in a throwaway trade. So we put together a great team to be right around Giannis. and we were able to win a championship.
Now
which is really hard.
Dragging down a 2-8 team. That's why you sold. Well done. A reminder, form your questions over there at the microphone. I know, Casper, I am counting on you for at least one question. Please head over there to the microphone if you have any questions for Marc. We'd really love this to be an interactive conversation. We'll keep going all night, but we're happy to involve you guys. I'm curious about your thoughts on the Saudis getting into the investment in sports, throwing their money around everywhere, in particular Live Golf. They have the best golfers on the planet, and yet no TV deal. A, do you like the Saudis investing in sports? B, how does a league with the best golfers on the planet not have a TV deal? To your point, sailing has a solid TV deal.
I think there's issues with Live Golf. I think Saudi can do whatever they want. It's their capital. We invested in the PGA, and we invested in the PGA at a time when they were having issues because of what was going on with Live. I think ultimately you'll have a merger with Live and the PGA. I don't know when that happens, but that should hopefully happen, in the course of the next year or two. And if that does, that'll be good for the PGA and it'll be good for Live, I think.
Wasn't disrespectful to the families of 9/11, those who lost loved ones?
You're going into a whole political question of to me, they're a sovereign state. To me, it's very simple. If I have an issue with someone, don't deal with them. If you have an issue with them, don't deal with it. And I think for all the families, I totally understand what they were saying and what they're doing. And if they're successful in trying to stop them, I think that's their right.
All right, this is going to be the toughest question you get all night. Casper.
Why did you buy a TGL franchise?
Why did I buy a TGL franchise?
Tell him what TGL is first, if you can. This young man knows his sports, but I don't know that most people know what TGL is.
So TGL is the golf league. So Tiger and Rory came up with this idea of starting a golf league where it was virtual golf. You hit into a screen, the golfers would be talking to each other, and then you would build on a football field a huge putting green, and then they would putt on that, and it was a 2-hour event that we thought. The biggest problem I think media companies have is golf is not 2 hours. They wanted something that people could watch for 2 hours. They wanted the interaction of the players. They wanted it to be fun. So there were 6 teams. Tiger owned a team in Miami. Rory owned Boston. You had Arthur Blank, who bought the team in Atlanta. Stevie Cohen bought New York. Serena Williams bought LA. And then there was one team left, and it was in San Francisco. There were 20 people who bid for that team, and the league screwed up, in my opinion. They said it was $37.5 million, so it was just a beauty contest. Who was going to get it? I know Tiger called him up, said, hey, I'm one of the 20. I've known you a long time. Can you make sure I win? And Tiger goes, there's really nothing I can do. I was like, really? He goes, yes, I'm sorry. We'll figure it out. Call Steph and Michael Strahan. I'm like, spoke to Tiger, didn't go that well. How about you guys giving them a call? And they called him, and shockingly, we won the next day. And, right after we bought it, the league announced that they were going to have 2 more teams. They were going to start at $75 million. So the league finally starts this January. I think as long as the ratings are where we think it'll be, it should turn out to be a home run investment. So that was the reason I bought it. That and the fact I don't really play golf. But
Good question. Up next.
Hey, Marc.
Hi.
Neil Cohn, you may remember me. I'm one of the co-founders of Sponsor United that you invested in. You once told us, when I only made that one time, you invested a story about the All-Star game when you played with Mark Cuban. And I have to say, it was one of my favorite stories. My ears hurt from smiling. So I don't know if you'd share that story, but it was awesome.
Sure. So, since I had played, I got to play in the Celebrity All-Star game. And Mark Cuban is there, and I'm playing against Mark. And I go up to Mark, and I say to Mark, hey, listen, it's on national TV. How about when I cover you, I'll let you score. When you're covering me, you let me score. That way none of us look stupid. Right? He looks at me, he goes, no. Game on. Like, I'm gonna destroy you. I was like, really? So whatever, I scored 9 points, blocked them, and he scored 0. But the best part of the story is you're supposed to, the way it works is you play, it's an 8-minute quarters, so you play 4, the other, you come in and out. So Draymond Green was Mark's coach, and you have a celebrity coach, and Draymond was coaching Mark's team, and I'm about to go in, and I see Draymond, and I know him, and I'm like, hey, heads up, Cuban told me he hates you. Thinks you are the worst player in the league. And Draymond looks at me and goes, you're kidding? I'm like, no, I wouldn't lie to you. So he doesn't put him in the game for the whole time. He only plays in the first quarter. You guys see Mark's like steaming. He's like, he doesn't understand why he's not playing. So after the game, I go up to Mark. I'm like, hey, I'm really sorry. I told Draymond you hated him. And that's why he didn't put you in. He goes, why'd you do that? I go, game on. Yeah. So that was it.
Yes, sir.
What are your current thoughts? Like, when do you start to see media start to peak? If you take a look at some of European soccer leagues outside of the Premier League, you saw France, their media deal blew up. In Italy, domestic TV rights were down about 8%. If you take a look at the contract they did domestically with USA, went from about 65 million euro a year to down to about 11 million. In the case of, you're talking about NFL. In the case of some of these European countries, obviously soccer is religion. Also, with streamers, kind of losing money in the U.S. and cutting back. What are your thoughts about that?
You're absolutely right, by the way. So it's actually one of the reasons why we pretty much stay in the U.S. The U.S. is the largest media market. So we try, if we're going to invest in Europe, we need to invest in teams that are making money. We need to sort of know what we're investing in. That's why we were doing women's soccer. I don't mind investing $1 million, $2 million. We bought a team, Ipswich. So Ipswich was in the Championship League. One of the things we do in our fund is we lend money. And the reason is because everything's asset-based. Teams don't really make money. So Ipswich was being valued at 250. They raised 100 million at a 250 valuation. We lent them $25 million. So we did a 10% loan to value. Then we had option that once they got promoted, we could actually invest in the team, and we invested at 250 when the team's worth like 500. Media rights in Europe are really complicated, and I think it's hard. I don't see them really going up. Where I see them going up is more globally. And it's a little bit of what happened here in the United States. If you think of your local media companies, Diamond Sports, they went into bankruptcy. So local media rights have gone down quite a bit because you've got, people want to watch. If you're a Laker fan, you could be a Laker fan in Milwaukee, you could be a Laker fan here. They want to watch their team, so it's more the national than the local that seems to do well. So to me, I think what we're focused on is what's happening on the global level as opposed to what's happening on the local level in Europe, if that's helpful.
Yep. Thanks.
Any other questions? Let us know. Go ahead, sir.
Do you see any opportunity in the college sports sector to invest in, whether it's women's sports or any of the major sports?
I think it's a phenomenal opportunity. And I think what you're going to see is you're going to see a number of schools selling their teams. And the reason for that,
To whom?
to folks like us. Like, we're bidding on a couple teams, I can't tell you, but in essence, what we would do is buy 51% of the team. And, I mean, I think if you look at a bunch of these programs, they're making 50, 100 million off of their football program, off of their basketball program. So it's a way for universities, by the way, because under federal law, they've got to offer scholarships in all these different sports. So they've got to update their facilities. So one of the things they want to do is sort of say, okay, great, my football program makes 100 million. We'll sell 50%, that's 50 million. Do a 10 multiple on that, 15 multiple, that's 500, 750 million. That'll come for them to sort of fix different things at the university. So you're going to start seeing more of that.
And pay all their NIL.
Yes, and you know what the biggest problem with NIL for that? Name, image, and likeness. So if you give money, like, I don't know, where'd you go to college? Binghamton. We need something better.
Notre Dame!
No, from a sports
We
standpoint.
got a Notre Dame out.
Notre Dame? Okay, so Michigan. All right, Michigan. So if you sort of think about it, the problem at Michigan is if you donate to the university, you get a tax deduction. But what the schools need is they need money for NIL, but you can't go out and raise money for NIL because that's not a deduction, right? So that if you're giving $1 million to Michigan and you can say, I want it to go to the sports program, that's great. But if you say I want it to go for NIL, then it's not a deduction. So that's the issue. And so you've got a lot of that going on. So that's what's happening.
How far are we away from ownership of college sports programs? Sounds like you're discussing it.
Yeah, we're negotiating it. It's probably a year away. It takes a while. You've got to get everybody signed off on it. This isn't happening overnight.
Great question. Yes.
For those of us who aren't in a position to buy a team or a piece of a team, curious if you've seen any types of investment opportunities that are more accessible, legitimate ones out there. Any funds or groups or just any other ways of people are democratizing access in a sense to investing?
It's hard. I mean, it really is. And the reason for it is leagues don't allow it. So what you will find is a number, I think there's about like 40 teams around the world that are public. So Manchester United, the Atlanta Braves, the Green Bay Packers, the New York Knicks. But what you're talking about is a fund or a mutual fund that's going to be doing that. I think that's probably about 5 years away. You've got to structure it in a way where you're able to get approval by leagues. Right now, leagues are not going to approve you doing that. They don't want mutual funds, right? They want to know who the investors are. So that's become the biggest problem. You're absolutely right. I think a lot of people want to be able to invest, but it's kind of hard.
Morgan Stanley started an index where you can invest $250,000 in companies that have exposure to professional sports. Not actually teams, but it is the first of its kind. Did we have another question?
We're out of time. I'm so sorry.
We can't take one more question?
Okay, just for you two, but this is the final question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you perceive that there's any value in real estate in terms of rolling up stadium venues across the country and turning them into a REIT structure or anything like that?
I think there could be. I think, for us, we built the Deer District. So there's a lot of opportunities on the real estate side. So it's kind of fun. I think you can do really well, but it's going to be complicated. So thank you. Sorry.
Was hoping we could end with a power slap, but I guess you're probably not good. Okay. David, if we have the video, one of Marc's favorite videos, I don't know if we can end with that, with you at the White House. This is with you and Was this President Biden? And what's this video?
He's really big.
And as we go, was this the coolest moment about being an owner?
It is. It's fun. I think one of the great things, the day we won the championship, we ended up, I think that night I got a call from President Clinton, President Biden, and President Obama congratulating you. And it's kind of fun. I was hoping I could be like Biden. You know, you wear the sunglasses, but you're addressing everybody. It's actually, I remember when we won, my son says to me, because you're gonna go hold up that trophy, and he goes, whatever you do, you're on national TV. Don't drop it. And I'm like, okay. And I didn't realize it was gonna be heavy. And you go to lift it and you're realizing it's heavy, so you wanna make sure you don't drop it. So I'm going really slow. And I lift it over my head, but I'm going like this. Giannis comes by, just goes like this. And I must have gotten I think 500 texts. Are you okay? You looked like you were having a heart attack lifting that thing up. But it's a lot of fun. It's unique, it's different, obviously. We all got to go to the White House. President Clinton, I think when you came, President Clinton came for the party.
Came here to Marc's house.
Yeah, to Westport. And we had a lot of the players, and he's always like, so if you close your eyes, you'll think it's him. He goes, Marc, I just want you to know, you're a great American. The fact that you came here and you won that trophy, I love that.
Perfect way to end. Marc Lasry, founder of Avenue Capital.